Welcome back to the Before AGI podcast, everybody. Ready for a deep dive into a topic that's kind of like ripped from the headlines, maybe, but also feels straight out of science fiction. We're talking AI and warfare.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, we've been digging through a mountain of sources for this one.
Mountains, yeah.
UN reports, military strategy docs, think tank analyses, even some seriously brainy academic papers. And they all seem to agree on one thing. AI is about to turn warfare completely upside down.
You know, it's wild. What's really interesting is it's not just about, like, robots replacing soldiers on the battlefield.
Right, yeah.
This is AI transforming, like, literally every single aspect of war. Logistics, intelligence analysis, making decisions at super speed, maybe even faster than any human could.
Speaking of speed, you know what really gets me thinking is that conflict in Nagorno-Karabakh not too long ago.
Yeah.
Azerbaijan used those, what were they called?
Oh, those loitering munitions.
Yes,
Yeah.
basically autonomous drones, right?
Yeah.
Who just search for and attack targets on their own. It totally shifted the balance of power.
Absolutely. You could call it a watershed moment. And you can see the ripple effect across the globe now. China, Russia, the US, Britain, they're all pouring tons of resources into developing their own autonomous weapon systems. They're convinced AI is the key to future victories.
So it's like a new arms race is kicking off, only this time it's all about algorithms and processing power instead of just, bigger bombs.
Yeah.
And get this, remember General Mark Milley?
Former chairman of the Joint Chiefs.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he predicted that in just 15 years, sophisticated militaries could be like 20% robotic.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
I mean, the battlefield, what would that even look like with that many autonomous weapons running around?
It boggles the mind.
Throughout history, nations have always been searching for that decisive edge in warfare.
Sure.
Napoleon, he had his rapid troop movements, the Germans, the Blitzkrieg, right?
Right.
AI offers that same potential for speed and just overwhelming force, but on a scale we haven't even begun to grasp.
Okay, so all these autonomous weapons, trying to wrap my head around the different types out there.
Sure.
Can you, break it down for us a bit? What are we dealing with?
Totally. Think of it as like a spectrum of autonomy.
Okay, spectrum.
On one end, you've got systems with a human on the loop, like a defensive system that intercepts incoming rockets automatically.
Gotcha.
But a human can always override it if they need to.
So like a super advanced autopilot, but with a pilot standing by just in case.
Exactly. Then you've got human-in-the-loop systems. So a human operator picks the target, but the weapon itself handles the engagement, like those homing munitions that lock onto specific objects,
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But what about, the truly autonomous weapons everyone's freaking out about?
Yeah.
The ones making decisions all on their own.
Those are the human out-of-the-loop systems. That's where it gets really, really complicated.
I bet.
Weapons that could actually choose and engage targets, no human intervention needed. Like those loitering munitions we were talking about before. Search and attack within a defined area, but totally autonomously.
Kind of sounds like something straight out of Terminator, to be honest. A little unnerving.
It is a bit freaky. But important to remember, even simple autonomous weapons have been around for a long time. Landmines, for example, they've been used for centuries.
Right.
And today we've got things like the U.S. Phalanx close-in weapon system automatically shoots down incoming missiles, or the Israeli Iron Dome, same idea for rockets.
Makes sense.
Even South Korea has those SGR-A1 gun turrets, they're guarding the DMZ, can operate autonomously if needed.
So these systems, not totally new, but the level of sophistication, that's what's skyrocketing.
For sure. We're seeing AI beating human pilots in simulated dogfights. Loyal wingman drones are being developed to back up manned aircraft. Even swarms of drones, think about that, could overwhelm defenses just by sheer numbers.
It's almost too much to take in.
The possibilities, both good and bad, they're mind-blowing.
Okay, so let's talk about the potential downsides here. Because, ethically speaking, this is huge, right?
Right.
It feels like we're stepping into this whole new world of warfare where machines are the ones making life-or-death decisions.
Yeah, and that's the big debate raging right now at the UN. See, traditional just war theory, it argues that some wars might be necessary, but there's this crucial principle of discrimination protecting civilians from harm.
Right, of course.
But with autonomous weapons, can we really guarantee that? How can a machine truly understand the complexities of a battlefield and make those kinds of moral judgments?
It's a great question. So how is the international community responding to all this? Is there, like, any agreement on how to regulate these autonomous weapons?
Well, there's about 30 countries, China included. They want a total ban on human out-of-the-loop weapons.
A total ban.
Yeah, they're saying the risks are just too high, got to draw a line in the sand.
Okay, makes sense. But are the big military powers on board with that? I imagine they're not exactly eager to give up any advantage, are they?
Yeah, you're right. They're pushing back against a complete ban. They're saying current international law is enough, and they don't want to be tied down by overly restrictive regulations.
So it's a stalemate. No treaty in sight,
Yeah.
just a lot of talk and guidelines that don't really have any teeth.
Kind of feels that way, yeah. And it raises a crucial question. What's to stop a full-blown AI arms race if we don't have clear rules?
Mm-hmm.
What happens when countries start believing that their security depends entirely on having the most advanced autonomous weapons?
It's a scary thought, isn't it? And it kind of leads to another danger with these autonomous weapons, the possibility of what they call flash wars.
Flash wars.
Yeah. Scenarios where these AI systems, they're reacting to each other so fast
Yeah.
that they could accidentally trigger conflicts, like before humans even realize what's happening.
So hold on, you're saying these systems could basically start a war on their own?
Yeah. We're talking about systems that process information, make decisions way faster than any human can. The speed of warfare, it could just explode, leaving no time for human judgment or diplomacy. Okay, I see what you mean. So we've got a potential AI arms race, the risk of accidental wars sparked by these super-fast systems, and then all the ethical dilemmas of machines making life or death calls. Is there anything else we should be worried about?
One thing people don't always think about is how vulnerable these systems are to hacking.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine a terrorist group, let's say, gets their hands on this tech, reprograms it to attack civilians.
That's a terrifying thought. It feels like we're opening this Pandora's box with these autonomous weapons. But before we get too doom and gloom, is there any upside here? Could they be used to make war less destructive? Maybe even save lives?
Yeah, I mean, it's not all bad news. There are some potential benefits. For example, theoretically, you could program these systems to follow the laws of war really strictly,
Okay.
potentially reducing civilian casualties and minimizing collateral damage.
So no acting out of fear or anger or revenge, like a human soldier might. It's programmed to protect innocent lives first and foremost.
Exactly. Plus, think about improved accuracy in targeting. Autonomous weapons, less risk of friendly fire incidents, more precise strikes, maybe limiting the unnecessary destruction.
Good point.
They could even help de-escalate conflicts by giving more reliable, objective info to the humans making the decisions.
Okay, that's a little reassuring. But it still feels like we're walking this tightrope, you know?
Yeah.
The good and the bad, the potential is just massive. We need to be having some serious conversations about where the line is with this stuff.
Absolutely. Can't let this tech just develop unchecked. Got to be asking the tough questions. How much autonomy are we comfortable with? How do we make sure humans are still in control of the use of force?
Right.
And the biggest one, I think, how do we prevent an AI arms race that could destabilize the entire world?
I feel like that idea of meaningful human control, that's really at the core of it all.
Yeah.
But like we said, defining that in practice, that's tricky, especially with AI advancing so fast.
Right. It's like a moving target, but we can't just give up, right?
No.
We have to keep updating our definitions, adapting our legal frameworks to keep up with the tech. It's a constant process.
One of our sources, a report from the International Committee of the Red Cross, they argued that unpredictable autonomous weapons, the ones where you can't fully understand, predict, or explain their effects, those should be banned outright. What do you think?
That's a position a lot of experts are taking. The logic is if we can't be reasonably sure how an AI system will behave on a battlefield in all that chaos, then we shouldn't be using it.
Makes sense to me. But getting all of the countries in the world to agree on that seems impossible. There's always going to be that tension between, wanting military advantage and ethical concerns.
Oh, absolutely. It's that classic security dilemma. One country builds a new weapon, their neighbors freak out, build an even bigger one, and the cycle keeps going.
And in this case, that cycle could lead to a world where autonomous weapons are just the norm, not some sci-fi movie plot.
It's a real worry. That's why we need to be having these conversations now, before it gets out of hand. Got to balance national security with ethics and global stability. Instead of just focusing on banning specific tech, maybe we should try building norms, establishing trust between countries.
Yeah, so instead of banning all autonomous weapons, we need a more nuanced approach.
Right.
Maybe restrict certain types of systems or how they're used. Like, Ban fully autonomous weapons for offense, but allow them for defense.
Yeah, that's one idea. Or we could set up international zones where these weapons are banned, kind of like nuclear-free zones.
Mhm.
The point is to find creative solutions that address security concerns, but also reduce the risk of this powerful technology.
Finding that balance, that's going to take a lot of careful thought, a lot of global cooperation.
For sure. But we can't just ignore the problem and hope it goes away.
Nope.
We've already crossed a line in a lot of ways. AI is here to stay. It's going to keep transforming the world, whether we like it or not. The question is, are we going to control it, or is it going to control us?
Wow, that's deep. And it really highlights how urgent this is. This isn't just some military thing, it's a global issue. It affects all of us.
You're right. AI development, it's not just in military labs, it's happening everywhere. Universities, companies all over the world. And that makes regulating it, controlling it, even harder.
Speaking of which, one of the reports we read from the Brookings Institution, they were worried about how hard it is to actually control the development and testing of these weapons.
Yeah.
It's not like nuclear weapons, you need these huge facilities for that.
Right.
Autonomous weapons, you could build them in a small workshop. Makes them a lot harder to track.
Exactly. Even if we had a treaty banning certain types, how do you actually make sure everyone follows it?
Right.
It's a tough problem.
Right.
We might need entirely new international institutions just to oversee the development of AI in warfare.
It's a lot to take in. It feels like we're entering this whole new era of warfare. Offense, defense, human, machine, all the lines are getting blurry.
It's a real paradigm shift. We have to completely rethink how we approach security and conflict. The old ways of thinking, they just don't cut it anymore. We need fresh ideas, new solutions, and a willingness to work together globally.
We're going to take a quick break here, but when we come back, we'll dig into some potential solutions and leave you with some things to think about. Stick with us. All right, so we're back. And the big question is, where do we go from here? We've talked about the potential of AI in warfare, the good, the bad, and the downright scary. But what are the solutions? Can we actually steer this tech in the right direction?
Well, the good news is it's not too late. We just have to be proactive. We can't wait for this stuff to develop and then try to regulate it. That's like closing the barn door after the horse is gone, right?
Right.
We got to get ahead of this and start shaping how AI and warfare develops, like right now.
So what does that look like? What are the actual steps?
Well, first things first, we have to keep talking about it. The more open and transparent the conversation about AI and warfare, the better. And it can't just be military folks and tech people.
Right. We need ethicists, lawyers, people who study society, even philosophers. It's a complicated problem, needs a lot of different perspectives.
Like a global summit on AI almost. Get all the smartest people in one room, figure out how to navigate this.
Exactly. And we can't leave the public out of it. It's not just for governments and experts to decide. AI and warfare, it affects everybody.
Absolutely.
We got to include people in the conversation about the future of war, what role they want AI to play.
One of our sources, a report from the International Committee of the Red Cross, they suggested setting clear red lines. Like any system designed to directly target humans, that's a no-go.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start. It reinforces that idea of meaningful human control, which is really at the heart of this whole debate. Humans should always be the ones making the final call when it comes to using force. But like we said before, defining meaningful human control, that's a tough one. Tech's changing so fast, it's getting harder and harder to separate human decisions from machine decisions.
It is, yeah. But we can't just throw our hands up. We got to keep reevaluating our definitions, updating our laws to keep pace. It's a constant process, not a one-time fix.
What about, like, an international organization to oversee all this? Kind of like the IAEA for nuclear weapons.
Interesting idea. It would be a huge undertaking, but it might be what we need to make sure AI is developed and used responsibly. Set standards, monitor compliance,
Yeah.
Maybe even help countries cooperate and avoid an AI arms race.
It sounds like global cooperation is key here. No one country can solve this alone.
Exactly. We have to think bigger than just our own national interests. AI could completely change the balance of power in the world. It could make existing conflicts worse, create new ones, even lead to types of war we can't even imagine right now. If we don't work together to manage this, things could get out of hand quickly.
One of our sources, a report on the weaponization of AI, argued that we should be focusing less on developing AI for war and more on using it for good.
Right.
Is that, like, even realistic?
I think it's crucial, actually. AI has so much potential to change things for the better. In healthcare, education, energy, transportation, you name it.
For sure.
What if we put as much effort into developing AI for peace as we do for war? We could solve some of the world's biggest problems: climate change, poverty, disease.
It's amazing to think about, but also kind of sad.
Yeah.
We have this incredible tool, and we're choosing to use it to build weapons instead of a better future.
But the future of AI, it's not set in stone. We get to decide what role we want it to play. A force for good or a force for destruction. The choice is ours.
I love that. That's a perfect way to wrap this up. We've looked at the challenges, the possible solutions, but at the end of the day, the future of AI and warfare, it's in our hands. It's up to each and every one of us to demand that our leaders, our governments, they prioritize peace and human security.
Yeah.
We have to be informed, engaged, and ready to speak out against the unchecked development of autonomous weapons.
And we have to start thinking about AI as more than just a military tool. It's going to shape every part of our lives. What kind of future do we want? What values do we want to build into AI? What safeguards do we need?
Right.
Those are questions we all need to be asking, not just the policymakers and the experts, but everyone.
This has been an eye-opening deep dive into the world of AI in warfare. If you want to learn more, we've got links to all our sources in the show notes. And make sure to subscribe to the Before AGI podcast for more deep dives into all things AI. You can also check out my YouTube channel, Ian Ochieng AI, for tutorials and insights into all sorts of AI concepts. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.